Imagine you built something in your spare bedroom, no investors, no company behind you, just you, a computer, and a problem you wanted to solve. You release it for free. 200 million people download it. It becomes one of the most trusted tools in the entire Windows ecosystem. And then the most powerful software company on earth starts quietly trying to make it stop working. Not once, not twice, 3 times in 3 years. Now here is what makes this story different from your typical big tech bully narrative. The tool they keep blocking? It is not competing with them. It does not make money. The guy who built it is not trying to get rich. He just wanted people to be able to install Windows properly. So why does Microsoft keep going after it? That is the question this video is going to answer. And I promise you, by the end, you are going to look at your next PC purchase very differently. The tool is called Rufus, and this is its story. If you have ever installed Windows from scratch, there is a good chance Rufus was involved. For the people who have not heard of it, Rufus is a small portable application, we are talking under 2 megabytes, that lets you create bootable USB drives. You use it to install operating systems, run diagnostics, flash firmware. It is one of those tools that just works every single time, no drama. Pete Batard built it. He is a French software developer who has been working on Rufus since 2011. He never charged for it. He never monetized it with ads. He hosts it on GitHub, releases updates regularly, and has done this for over a decade, almost entirely out of personal conviction. The tool currently has over 200 million total downloads and pulls in around 3 million new downloads every single month. For a piece of software that costs nothing and asks for nothing, those numbers are extraordinary. For most of its life, Rufus and Microsoft had what you would call a politely neutral relationship. Microsoft did not endorse it, but they did not fight it either. It was part of the ecosystem, a trusted part. Tech journalists recommended it, IT professionals relied on it. It was simply the best way to make a Windows USB installer. Then Windows 11 happened. In October 2021, Microsoft launched Windows 11 with a hardware requirement that nobody saw coming. TPM 2.0, that stands for Trusted Platform Module, and it is a security chip that handles encryption keys and system integrity checks. Sounds reasonable on the surface. The problem is that tens of millions of perfectly functional computers do not have it, or have it disabled, or have a version that Microsoft arbitrarily decided was not good enough. Overnight, Microsoft told hundreds of millions of people that their computers were not worthy of a free upgrade. Machines from 2017, 2018, 2019. Computers that ran Windows 10 without a single issue. Computers that people had spent real money on, suddenly classified as incompatible. The tech community pushed back immediately, but Pete Batard did something about it. In 2022, he quietly added a feature to Rufus that allowed users to create a Windows 11 installer that bypasses the TPM requirement. No registry hacks, no sketchy third-party scripts, just a clean, trustworthy installer with the restriction removed. The feature worked beautifully, people flooded to it, and that is when things got interesting. In mid-2023, Microsoft made a change to their Media Creation Tool API, the official way that applications like Rufus download Windows installation files directly from Microsoft servers. The change broke Rufus. Specifically, it broke the part that let Rufus pull down the latest Windows 11 ISO for users. Pete noticed it almost immediately. He investigated, and what he found did not look like an accident. Here is the part that nobody in the mainstream tech press really dug into. The API change was surgical. It did not break everything. It broke the specific download flow that Rufus used. Other methods still worked. Microsoft had not updated their documentation. There was no public announcement. It just quietly stopped working. Pete Batard said publicly on the Rufus GitHub page that this appeared to be a deliberate block. Not a bug, not an oversight, a targeted action. He was direct about it. He named Microsoft. He described the technical specifics. And then he worked around it, updated Rufus, and the tool kept working. Then it happened again in 2024, a second API change. Same pattern, narrow, surgical, targeting the exact flow Rufus depended on. Pete responded the same way, investigated, documented, called it out publicly, and patched around it. The Rufus community started using the word deliberate. The GitHub issue threads filled up with frustrated users and developers asking why a multi-trillion-dollar company was playing whack-a-mole with a one-person free tool. By this point, Microsoft had not said a word publicly. No statement, no response to Pete accusations, just silence, and then another quiet API adjustment. So let us ask the uncomfortable question. Why would Microsoft do this? Rufus does not come to meet with Microsoft of product. It does not make money. It does not run ads. It does not collect data. On the surface, Microsoft has nothing to gain from killing it, except they do. And this is where the story shifts from a simple David versus Goliath fight into something more strategic and more troubling. Every person who uses Rufus to bypass the TPM 2.0 requirement is a person who does not buy a new PC. Microsoft hardware partners, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Asus needed people to upgrade. New PC sales drive the ecosystem. They drive new Windows licenses. They drive new pre-installed software deals. They drive the entire consumer hardware cycle that Microsoft sits at the center of. But there is more. When you do a clean Windows install on an old machine, you often skip the Microsoft account requirement too. Rufus has a feature for that. You can create a local account instead, which means Microsoft does not get your email address. They do not get your activity data. They do not get you into their cloud ecosystem. They do not get telemetry. They do not get a pathway to sell you Microsoft 365. And there is a third layer. Windows 10 support ends in October 2025. Microsoft's official message to people with older hardware was simple. If your machine cannot run Windows 11, it is time to buy a new one. Rufus directly undermines that message. It tells 200 million users a different story. It says your machine is fine. You do not have to spend $800 on a new laptop. You just need a USB drive in 10 minutes. That is not a small disruption. That is a direct challenge to a hardware refresh cycle that was supposed to generate tens of billions of dollars in new PC sales across the entire Windows ecosystem, and Microsoft noticed. Here is what actually happened as a result of those API changes. Rufus did not die. Pete patched it each time. But something else happened that Microsoft probably did not anticipate. Each time the story broke, Rufus got more attention. Tech channels covered it. Reddit threads went viral. The GitHub star count climbed. The monthly download numbers went up, not down. The attempted blocks became free advertising. The community response was not panic. It was defiance. Users who had never heard of Rufus found it because of the controversy. IT professionals who already used it recommended it louder. The tool reputation for being trustworthy, patched under fire, and maintained by someone willing to fight back made it more popular than it had ever been. At the same time, Microsoft's reputation took damage in the enthusiast community. Forums like r/Windows 11 and r.sysadmin filled with posts describing Microsoft behavior as anti-competitive, anti-consumer, and embarrassing. The narrative was no longer just about a hardware requirement. It was about a company trying to bully a solo developer into submission and failing. Pete has continued updating Rufus. As of the most recent versions, the tool still supports TPM bypass, still supports local account creation, still pulls Windows ISOs, still works. Every workaround Microsoft implemented, Pete reversed. But here's why this matters right now, in 2025, more than at any point in the story. Windows 10 end of life is here. Microsoft is pushing everyone toward Windows 11. The hardware makers are pushing everyone toward new machines. And Microsoft has started floating the idea of charging for extended Windows 10 security updates for regular consumers, something they have historically reserved for enterprise customers. The financial pressure to force an upgrade cycle is higher than it has ever been. At the same time, there are credible reports and GitHub discussions suggesting that Microsoft may tighten Windows 11 installation restrictions further in upcoming builds. The TPM bypass that Rufus relies on works at the installer level, and Microsoft has the ability to close that gap in a future update. If they do it quietly, and based on the pattern, quiet is exactly how they operate, millions of users could find themselves without a working bypass overnight. Pete has said he will keep fighting, but one developer, no matter how skilled or committed, can only move so fast. There is also a broader question here that goes beyond Rufus. If Microsoft is willing to make targeted, undocumented API changes to break a specific third-party tool, what does that say about the reliability of the entire Windows ecosystem for independent developers? If you build something that Microsoft finds inconvenient, do you have any protection? The answer based on this evidence is not a comfortable one. So what should you actually do right now? First, download Rufus today if you have not already. Get it directly from Rufus, IE, or the official GitHub repository. Do not get it from third-party mirror sites. Make sure you have the latest version, because older versions may not have the API patches Pete has implemented. Second, create a Windows 11 bootable USB with the TPM bypass enabled right now, before Microsoft potentially closes the gap. You do not have to use it immediately. Having it means you are prepared. If Microsoft tightens restrictions in a future update and you suddenly need to reinstall or recover a machine, that USB could save you from a forced hardware purchase. Third, set up a local Windows account if you have not already. Rufus gives you that option during the setup process. A local account means Microsoft has significantly less visibility into your activity, and it removes one of the strongest arguments for upgrading to a new machine inside their ecosystem. Fourth, follow Pete Batard on GitHub. Watch the Rufus release notes. This situation is still developing. New Microsoft updates could change the landscape fast. People who find out first are the ones watching the source, not waiting for a news article 3 days later. Fifth, if Rufus has ever helped you, and statistically, if you have been installing Windows for the past 10 years, there is a strong chance it has, consider donating to the project. There is a donation link on the Rufus website. One developer has been holding the line against $1 trillion company for years for free. If that work has value to you, $10 is a reasonable way to say so. Here is the thing that sticks with me about this story. 200 million people downloaded a tool built by one person in his spare time because it was better, simpler, and more honest than what the biggest software company in the world was offering. That is not a small thing. That is a signal. It is a signal that trust matters more than market dominance, that a single developer who genuinely cares can build something that outlasts every attempt to kill it. And it is a reminder that the tools we rely on most are often not the ones backed by the biggest budgets. They are the ones built by people who actually give a damn. Microsoft may try again. Pete will probably patch it again. And 3 million people will download Rufus next month, just like the month before. If this video helped you understand what is actually at stake here, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this channel. Drop a comment and tell me, have you used Rufus? Did you know any of this was happening? And if you want more stories about the tools and developers that the industry tries hardest to ignore, subscribe. There are more of them than you think.